Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, where our mission is to join together to create a nourishing liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world, or as we say in short, to create community, find meaning, and work for justice. Welcome to one and all. It's good to have you here this morning at our early bird service. We have just a few early birds with us in the sanctuary, but all the important ones are here, for sure. And of course, a lot of folks streaming with us during our early service as well. We're so glad to have all of you today. So welcome to one and all. We want to begin by embracing all that you bring with you to this space, as always, all of your unique beliefs, your background, your lifestyle, your experiences, all that helps make you who you are is welcome here this morning. So thanks for being here. We've just got one announcement that our board president handed me this morning and asked me to make, so I'm going to do that now. And she's such a poetic writer, I'm just going to read it as verbatim. Members of the Board of Trustees will be in the Friendship Hall between services today to take your comments and feedback on our proposed bylaws division. So a lot of you know the board's been working for over a year now, but they've been meeting every Monday night to revise our bylaws, and they've put those out, and they want to get comments before hopefully we reward them for all their hard work by passing those bylaws in the next couple of weeks. For those wishing to give feedback who cannot be here in person, who want to do so online via Zoom, we're going to have an open meeting from 5 to 6 this afternoon. From 5 to 6 this afternoon, Pacific Standard Time, of course, for those who are on the East Coast or Mountain Time. And the link for that is in the UUCS Zoom communications that goes out once a week, so you should already have that. All right, thank you. And let's take a little time this morning to greet one another. I always joke when we have a small crowd that you might have to go for a little bit of a walk, get some of your steps in, but it's not really that bad, but you've got an opportunity to say hi to just about everyone in the room this morning. And those of you who are streaming with us, feel free to shoot us a text or an email or call a friend or something like that. Okay. As always, there's more time to visit with one another during our social hour. Grab a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. But we're going to move forward now by lighting our chalice, which is the symbol of our faith, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism, of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need, and may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found.
Here are a few words I wrote some time ago for the Old Little Nature Chapel. One of the privileges of advanced age is the ability to draw on experience, to go beyond the individual incidents of life and see the big picture. As we travel through this stage of existence, we may feel joy enhanced by a unique significance, or sadness tempered by knowledge and understanding. As we go through life's eternal cycles, we may draw hope from our growing comprehension of our unity with all there is, for we are one with humankind, the animal kingdom, all of nature. Namaste. And we may recognize these marvelous thoughts penned in a letter by Albert Camus. My dear, in the midst of hate, I found there was within me an invincible love. In the midst of tears, I found there was within me an invincible smile. In the midst of chaos, I found there was within me an invincible calm. In the midst of winter, I found there was within me an invincible summer. And that makes me happy, for it says that no matter how hard the world pushes against me, within me there is something stronger, something better, pushing right back. Truly yours, Albert Camus.
Our first in-service hymn of the morning is number 301. You can access it in your gray hymnal or the screen right up here. Touch the earth and reach the sky. Please rise as you're willing and able. Touch the earth and reach the sky. Walk on shores while spirits fly. Over the ocean, over the land, on faithful quest to understand. Touch the earth and reach the sky. Children, as the reasons why. In our lives the answers show, and our love they learn and grow. Touch the earth and reach the sky. All are born and all shall die. Life's the time left in between, to follow a star, to build a dream. Touch the earth and reach the sky. Hug the laughter, feel the cry. May we see where we can give, for this is what it means to live. Touch the earth and reach the sky. Soar with courage ever high. Spirits joining as we fly, to touch the earth and reach the sky.
Yeah, we might have to work on some of the lyrics. I think there were a couple of slates maybe missing, Deb, but
Oh boy. Wouldn't you know?
We'll have time to type those in after the service, so we apologize for that.
Sorry, I usually come in Friday to check.
It's not a big deal. Not a big deal. You were gone to Idaho. That's it. Okay. Don't go to Idaho anymore. Okay, no problem. No problem. We are going to now have our candles of care for those who are most on our hearts and minds this morning. Again, I did not receive any specific requests for candles, but I think it's appropriate at this time to light a candle each week on behalf of the people both of the Ukraine and the people of Russia, and for everyone in that part of the world who are most suffering from the violence that's going on there. And let's take a moment of silence now on behalf of others that you might be thinking of, and as always, you're welcome to name them aloud at this time if you'd like. Those named aloud and those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering in our world at this hour, we hold in our community with compassion. And we now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which helps sustain this community and our mission to the larger world.
Good morning. Today, I have a little book I want to share with you. It's called Harper Joy, Spokane's Man of Many Faces by Doris Woodward. Doris published this in 2007, and she gave me a signed copy. Doris was my dear neighbor for about 40 years, and last December she passed. But I'd like to honor Doris by telling you her story about another neighbor who lived next door. Let the show begin. Did anyone ever want to join a circus when they grew up? Did anyone ever want to become a real circus clown? Well, my story is about a real circus clown who lived in my backyard. Well, not exactly, but you could have looked into his backyard from mine and seen a real railroad train. Harper was not born with the name Joy. It came to him later, before he was 2 years old. You see, his daddy left little Harp and his mom and never came back. But another nice family down in Walla Walla, named Henry and Ann Joy, adopted Harper. That's when he became Harper Joy, aptly named and in full possession of it. As a kid, Harper loved the circus. Whenever it came through Walla Walla, he would go, but he would have to grow up before he could ever join one, and he would have to go to college first. So Harper did well in school, but the lure of the theater pulled him into a touring vaudeville act where he honed stage skills. He dropped out of high school in Walla Walla with days to go before graduation. Later, broke, Harper came back to Walla Walla, graduated from Whitman College, and then took a job in Spokane with a banker named Joel Ferris. Joel hired Harper to sell stocks, bonds, securities. Harper must have been a pretty good salesman. By 1927, he had married, was raising a bunch of little boys, and had bought a house on the South Hill at 825 West 21st Avenue, near Cannon Hill Park. Harper Joy lived in a very unusual neighborhood. In fact, it made Ripley's, believe it or not, in 1928. On one corner, there was the Joy family. Right next door was the Sad family. I've got a pair of shoes being repaired by the Sad shoe repair right now. Across the street was the John Happy family. I played tennis with John Happy, who grew up in that house. And down the street was the Gay family. We had a diverse block. Through the 1920s, Harper was active in Spokane theater, eventually becoming the face and the voice that launched the Spokane Civic Theater. He produced a silent movie called Crown Jewels, which starred many actors from Spokane. You can go to the MAC, and maybe they'll show you the movie. Well, everything was going really well for Harper, but something bad happened in 1929. What bad thing happened in 1929? Yeah, the Depression happened. But Harper kept his job. He was now grown up and had a little extra time to join a circus and be a clown. So Harper joined the Al Barnes Circus and began touring as a clown. Later, the Shell Brothers Circus, and later he joined the Ringling Brothers Circus and was well known up and down the West Coast. He was even made president of the Circus Fans of America. If you grow up and become a clown, you think you ought to keep your day job? Yeah. So Harper's clowning around caught the attention of Louis Davenport. Davenport was so taken with Harper's love of the circus, he decided to honor Harper with a room at the hotel. You can book room 730 and spend a night surrounded by elephants, tigers, trapeze artists, and lions. It's all decorated in themes of the circus. Did you know that a circus clown could drive a train? All aboard Cannon Hill and Pacific Railroad, departing 825 West 21st for Joytown. Get your tickets here. On December 25th, 1936, the kids of Cannon Hill awoke to find a surprise in the backyard of the Joy House. A real train on a real track had appeared. And for the next 20 years, it would magically carry kids to places like Joysburg, Joy's Town, and St. Joy. Harper knew everybody. He had railroad connections. And he had found that old saddleback locomotive for sale and arranged to have it, a caboose, and 60 feet of track trucked up to his backyard. His railroad slogan was, "The road to yesterday, our road not as long but as wide as any." Yeah, you can picture Harper in uniform, collecting tickets which were free, and making sure all the kids knew the rules of the rail. Train runs only during periods of total eclipses, tidal waves, and days when security dealers are happy and contented. Passengers over 87, accompanied by their parents, are permitted to ride half fare. Yep, Harper had even posted a timetable showing the CH&P schedule. Well, speaking of time, mine is about up. In Doris Woodward's final chapter, The Final Curtain, she writes that although Harper Joy certainly gave so much, he may have been the recipient of the greatest gift of all, that of being able to make people laugh. Thank you.
Let us meditate on these inspirational words written by Rachel Carson. There is symbolic as well as actual beauty in the migration of the birds, the ebb and flow of the tides, the folded bud ready for the spring. There is something infinitely healing in the repeated refrains of nature, the assurance that dawn comes after night and spring after the winter, creating a sense of wonder so indestructible that it would last throughout life and be a source of strength.
Dan, thank you so much for that entertaining piece of local history, probably unknown that deserves to be known. I love that period myself, and so I particularly enjoyed hearing that. For our reading today, I'm actually going to read the first two paragraphs of my own book, Evolution's Way. As some of you know, I've written a couple of more controversial books recently in order to take on some of the concerns I have with our own that are going on in our own religion. But if I had my way, I would focus exclusively on this stuff because it brings me so much joy and hope for our future. This book is not a scientific treatise, and I am not a scientist. I'm a minister, and it's based on a collection of sermons I've given over the course of 15 years, beginning in 2004. They're founded on my understanding of evolution as the exponential flow of everything, life, ideas, society, technology, humanity, and the entire cosmos, toward increasingly higher states of complexity, consciousness, and unity, in that order. Each touch upon a recurring theme in my pulpit, that the universe itself is awakening, and Homo sapiens represents a significant bifurcation in this evolutionary process. This is so largely because human beings, to a much greater degree than any other animal on earth, have developed the ability to exchange information through the sharing of ideas, freeing it from its genetic confines. This book, like any book, is a good example. Information can now be exchanged between host organisms in the form of memes as well as genes. Human technology is also evolving exponentially to facilitate this obvious trajectory. I need only mention computers and the internet to prove the point. Advances now underway in robotics, extended reality, and artificial intelligence are also on the verge of expanding human intelligence and intelligence itself in the coming years, much sooner, I think, than most may imagine. As we increasingly converge with such technology, our species, like 99% of all species to have come before us, will go extinct, likely by evolving into something new. I predict the human part of us will remain within whatever we become, just as our single-celled ancestors remain part of us. Human technology, from the Greek word meaning art or craft, is an extension of our humanity. So there's already something human in all of it. Laura, thank you so much. We're so fortunate to have you as our pianist. All right, well, I did not prepare a formal sermon today, not because I forgot, but because this is one of those rare occasions where I try to do it about once a quarter or so, where I just kind of answer some of the questions that you might have. Maybe based on some things that I've said in the past or not said in the past. The only caveat is it's not a business meeting, so I don't like to talk about church business. But otherwise, most all else is appropriate. And if you're, a visitor with us, or you're welcome to ask something too, if you're curious about what we're about or something like that. I did have one of our online streamers, Jim Marsh, send me an email this week, a very nice email, one of our regular folks who are online with us. And by the way, this is a streaming service, so we're not set up to be able to interact, like we can on Zoom. We're working on figuring out how to do that, so have patience with us, but we know we have an awful lot of people streaming with us on Sundays, so we do want to work up to the point where you can maybe engage a bit more with us. But Jim was kind enough to send me 2 questions in advance. So one of them is just a really kind question. He says, how can the congregation or I as an individual best support Dr. Eklof and UUCS leadership at this time? So one, just I think hearing this question warms our heart to know that we have so many people that care about this church and care about what's going on and care about the stands that we've taken in the religion to try to preserve our core values, which are I define as freedom, reason, and tolerance. But knowing that you're out there and that you care is one of the most important things anybody can do. So just asking the question, I think, does a lot for me. I don't know how some of our board members and others in the congregation might feel, but Jim, thank you for that question. And then Jim asked, what question or questions does Dr. Eklof wish the congregation would ask? I'm glad you asked. No, truthfully, I really like to kind of reserve these particular services for questions that others might have. I get to kind of cheat because I can answer whatever question I want every other Sunday, right? So even if I haven't been asked, you're going to hear the answer. So I don't have any real issues there. I'm fortunate to be able to be part of a church community where I'm pretty comfortable saying what I want. And not everybody likes everything I have to say, but too bad. It's a Unitarian Universalist church, right? So that's how it goes. Okay, Alan, you've got your fist up. Is this in solidarity, or are you asking a question?
Solidarity, yes. Very much familiar with the negative news that's flowing from the UUA, but is there any positive news that's come up regarding their...
Any positive news from the Unitarian Universalist Association? Not any positive news from the leadership there itself. The Unitarian Universalist Association is sort of a headquarters. We are an organization of autonomous member congregations that don't have a hierarchical church authority. Unfortunately, it seems like the UUA leadership is seeking to become an authoritarian church complete with a new dogma that it will hold all of us accountable for maintaining. So, obviously, that's what I'm pushing back against. What I can say is that there is a growing dissatisfaction with what's happening in the UUA. The biggest issue we face is so many Unitarian Universalists around the country have not been aware of what's going on. We're all pretty sheltered and into our own spaces and don't really have much to do with them. They're a member service organization. But they are working to influence our churches in unprecedented ways, particularly by controlling the ministers. So that's, and the flow and the positioning of ministers. So that's the hard part. But with more and more people becoming aware, there's a lot more pushback. And I think the tide will really turn before the UUA breaks up or dissolves or something like that. I think we'll regain control of it. My two books on the subject continue to sell every day, and we're a very small religion, so it's a very niche market. So to have it continuing to sell after 3 years tells me that people are continuing to find interest in this and wanting to at least have a frame to understand it. So, I think it's good. Conflict is good sometimes, right? That's how evolution happens, right? So
Stuff happens.
stuff happens, yeah. All right. Anyone else? Deb.
You said a few things about the approach to race relations from the UUA and some other spaces, but kind of in preparation for our minister next week, could you talk a little bit more about the evolution of where we are and why there's head bumping about how to do things?
Yeah, so the question is about, race relations in this country and how our religion is responding to it. and different opinions about how that should happen. What I would say is that my books are not about racial justice. Anybody who reads them would say this is about Unitarian Universalism. However, I do disagree with the critical race theory that is at the root of the UUA leadership's position about how we should deal with racial justice. And I'm obviously not the only one, and I'm not the only white person by any means who finds critical race theory to itself be a racist mindset that demeans people of color. And my belief and my practice around issues of racial justice has always been our common humanity ethic. That the more we learn to embrace those who are different from ourselves, the wider our circle becomes. The better off we are as a society, and that usually happens by relationships, just like when we fought so hard for marriage equality and greater gay rights in our country. That was something that was accomplished as more and more people in the world, or particularly in our country, but it did have a global impact, began to recognize they had relationships and family members and people they loved who just so happened to be gay. And we don't want the people that we care about, the people that we like, because when we like somebody, we admit there's something alike, right? We're like each other. We can't be unjust to people that are like us, right? Most of the injustices that occur in the world are because we convince ourselves we're not alike, right? And right now, by going into this sort of identity ethic that says we all have to get into our own lanes and stay in our own lanes, and it's not possible to relate with each other if we have certain pigment in our skin or have certain sexual preferences or if you happen to be a male or a female. I mean, these are the things Unitarians for years have been trying to get away from. They're the things we've been saying don't matter. And right now, the UUA leadership is trying to convince us that that's all that matters, and that we're so different we can't understand each other and we can't relate to each other. And it's a segregationist mindset. It's not the mindset that Dr. King referred to when he referred to creating a beloved community, right? He talked about a community in which little black girls and white girls and black boys are holding hands together, walking down the street together, marching side by side. And right now, if you go to a UUA march, they're going to say, would all the indigenous people come up front? Would all the other people of color get behind them? People with disabilities get behind them? People who are local get behind them? And all the other people get in the back. That's how these marches go. And that's just one example. So I think that the biggest difference is whether or not we think the way to approach racial equality is by enlarging the circle and recognizing that we're one, and we cannot let people that are part of our community suffer or be treated unjustly, versus this idea of continuing to segregate ourselves into identity groups that can't relate to each other. And I'm willing to accept the idea that critical race theory has some worthy goals, and maybe even some worthy practices, right? But what's happened right now is if you say, wait a minute, this is weird, this is not who we are, you're immediately labeled racist, homophobic, transphobic. Well, you're called, as I say, a racist, homophobic, transphobic, ableist, classist kitchen sink. And it's just an immediate panic, right? There's people don't even read your material. They just say this. So that's not who we are as Unitarians. That's not who we are. It's not who we've ever been. And I will continue to fight to my last breath this kind of mindset, whether it's in our religion or in our world. So let me just make sure there's nobody else first, Alan, because I want to get to, yes, Darrell.
I want to ask a question that, for churches that have a mindset like ours, that may be looking for a new minister, given what the UUA Ministers Association is like now, probably would not be looking to the UUA to help them find a minister. What are options for churches?
So Darrell asked a really good question. I'll repeat it for folks who didn't hear it and folks who are streaming with us, and I'll summarize it. I won't repeat it exactly, but he's really raising the concern about what are congregations like ours who are, sort of opposed to what's going on in the Unitarian Universalist Association going to do about getting a new minister when that time comes. I hope you're not thinking about it anytime soon. I'm kidding. But it's a really good question. I worry about it too, right? Because I'm not going to be here forever. I've been here 11 years, and I want a congregation to leave better. I want to leave a congregation better off than when I came. So the real problem there has to do with the fact that the two UU seminaries and then the Ministerial Fellowship Committee, which credentials them, there's really tremendous pressure on the students now to buy into this woke mindset, this woke dogma. And if they don't, they're not going to get through the process. And by the way, to become a Unitarian Universalist minister is one of the most difficult courses of ministry of any faith, right? Because you have to go through seminary, you have to go through clinical pastoral education, you have to have an internship, you have to go through psych evaluations, and then you get into preliminary fellowship, and it takes somewhere between 3 and 9 years before you get final fellowship, and they leave you the hell alone, So it's quite a commitment, and lots of money and lots of time. Right, so people don't want to go through all of that and then find out, well, we're not going to accept you. So one of the things I think that congregations are going to have to start thinking about is not going along with the UUA tradition of looking for ministers that have been credentialed through the Ministerial Fellowship Committee. You can't trust that process anymore anyway. So where are you going to find a liberal minister? And so I would start looking at some of the other progressive schools, graduates maybe from Harvard Theological School or Union or even Chicago, liberal ministers. And then I would ask the appropriate questions of the candidates. I'd say, have you ever signed a letter condemning another minister for a book they wrote without reading it? And if you have, can you explain, why? Why did you do that? That is not even necessarily an out. It would be for me. I'd say that's not what we do. But, that's 500 ministers who signed those letters, over 500. But remember, we're about, 1,000 congregations. We're a very small religion. So there's, out of the 2,000 ministers or so out there, there's, 75% did not sign those letters. So, but I think I think that's the best solution is, maybe find ministers, especially those of you who are from other churches that are streaming with us. Don't depend on the MFC necessarily, the credentialing process there, and find ministers who maybe have graduated from other schools, other progressive educations, and ask appropriate questions. Do you know where they're at? It's going to be hard, because the old process doesn't work anymore. But those would be my 3. Okay. Yes?
Can I ask you a question about your behaviors as an author, your writing behaviors?
Yeah, same, yeah, go ahead, yeah.
I have two questions.
Mhm.
First question is, how do you get past writer's block?
How do I get past writer's block?
And the second question is, how do you take the complexity and sometimes elusiveness of symbolism
Mhm.
and put it into literature where it's very linear, logical, kind of polar opposites?
Okay, taking symbolic language or maybe prose and putting it into logical form. Is that the
Constructs, like symbolic constructs.
symbolic constructs? Oh, okay. Yeah. Boy, those are really two good questions. I have to say I don't suffer from writer's block very much. So part of my life for the past 20, well, more than that really, probably 25 years in ministry has been writing something every week. And as you know by my sermons, that those are footnoted, and in many ways it could be like a graduate paper, you know. So it's become part of my process. I also worked in television news as a reporter for many years, and I also had to write scripts when I became a corporate video producer a few years as well. So I learned a lot to take imagery or take words and either write for imagery or imagery and write into words. So when I wrote my 3 books, the thing I have to say about them, the last 3, I've written 4 over the years, but they were all, I was very passionate about something. And I think if you're really passionate about it, you don't have to worry as much about writer's block compared to, something you have to write. Maybe you're contracted to write something, or it's part of your work, and so I think for me, just finding some passion in what you're writing about is what pushed me through. And I wrote my last 3 books in 2 years, so and I have a bad back because of it. But I think the other question's a little bit harder about putting things into words that really help you, and all writing is like that, no matter what the subject is putting things into words that people can understand, even complex subjects. And I think I've done pretty well at that. I mean, one tool is let your writing be about the things you're trying to understand yourself. Right? If you're trying to understand it yourself, then it's just kind of sharing how you simplified it for yourself. Right? So a lot of times I talk about things in my sermons that are very complicated subjects, maybe very scholarly subjects, but I always try to put them in very simple terms, not so that my audience can understand them, but so that I can understand them. So that's one thing. The other thing is something in journalism, especially television reporting, that they call people speak versus news speak. So news speak is, if most people are going to pretend to imitate somebody they see on TV, they're going to get the deep voice, and here we are standing at the corner of First, people speak is really just talking like a normal person and trying to figure out how to say something in a way that you would say it if you were talking to your best friend or something. Those are kind of the tools I use in my sermons. There's a lot of science, and this was the basis of sermons really. And in my book, The Gadfly Papers, which caused so much controversy, there's a whole section on logic. And I really worked hard, and I talk about symbolism and trying to take something that is very conceptual and and boring and try to put it into language that people could understand and care about and easily grasp. I tried really hard to just make it as simple as I could. And I didn't do a very good job because people hate that chapter. A lot of people do. But, so for example, there's a real common fallacy that most of us use where in logic it's called affirming the consequent, right? And you kind of see something happen and then you apply it to everything like that. So let me think of an example. Well, I'll give the example I use in the book. A rainbow has the color purple in it, right? Nobody would deny that, right? That's a fact. And but if you have a bouquet and it has the color purple in it, that doesn't make it a rainbow. But so often in our thinking, because we associate things, we will affirm what is called affirm the consequent. If it is a rainbow, it has the color purple. Deb is wearing the color purple. You're not, but I think that's blue, right? Yeah. But if you're wearing the color purple, that doesn't make you a rainbow, right? So that's the example I tried to give of affirming the consequent in that book, where everybody can see that just because. So like what's happening? Let's say, for example, if we say an organization, the Unitarian Universalist Association's membership are mostly white, right? Or let me back up. White supremacist organizations have memberships that are mostly white. The Unitarian Universalist Association has a membership that is mostly white. Therefore, the Unitarian Universalist Association is a white supremacist organization. That one's hard, right? That one's hard to catch the fallacy with. But it's the same fallacy as saying, if it is a rainbow, it has the color purple, a bouquet has the color purple, therefore the bouquet is a rainbow. You can understand it when you put it in terms like that. So that's the best I can do. Okay. Yes, Alan.
It's the sense of, last night went to Julia Sweeney's show. That's comedy. And watching her maintain comedy, the story, the brighter side of things, in some pretty dark subjects. Not to mention walking through some really big minefields with the comedy. How the hell do you maintain yours? It sometimes really sums up the question. Because a lot of what she's trying to do is tackle these subjects, difficult subjects, some involving logic and whatnot, yet, make it funny.
Well, it's a great question. This is one of the tragedies of the politically correct culture, is they have lost their sense of humor. Okay, they take things so seriously, words so seriously, that they're afraid, that you become afraid to laugh. And I'll tell you why that is, because we instinctively know that for something to be funny is that it has to violate a taboo. Okay, in comedy it's called a benign violation. So for example, the Three Stooges are very violent, but nobody gets hurt. Right, that's a benign violation. We shouldn't hurt people, right? So you could, put a chainsaw on, Curly Joe's head, and it goes around, and he goes, ow, 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 but there's no gore, and he, like Wile E. Coyote, he's back to the next scene. So we can laugh because we know nobody gets hurt, right? But the chicken and the egg joke is not that funny because it doesn't violate any taboos. So comedy pushes our taboos. And there's a little bit of shock value to it, and that's what makes it funny. So I remember when the General Assembly was here, in 2019, we were staging an event, and I was, as the local minister, invited to be part of that. And as the group that was staging it came together, they asked me if I would give an invocation as the local minister, which I'm very awkward about praying in public because, I'm a Unitarian minister, right? So I made this little, ice-breaking joke where I said, I'm always awkward praying in public because the Unitarian part of me doesn't know who to pray to, and the Universalist part doesn't know who not to pray to. So it's usually good for a couple of chuckles from Unitarians who would understand that. But this group, the tension, like people were scanning each other's faces, like what did he violate here? Who got hurt? Who was harmed? Absolutely no sense of humor. So I just went on and said my little thing. But humor is healing, right? Just like crying. These are the two things that help us rid our bodies and our hearts of burdens, tears and laughter. And both of them, we refer to as breaking up and cracking up, right? When we break up, when we cry, when we crack up, our facial expressions no longer maintain that sort of calm demeanor, that proper calm demeanor we want to show the world, that persona we want to show the world. This true emotional outbreak happens. And so there's a lot of similarity between cracking up and breaking up, between laughter and tears. They're both healing. And humor in particular helps us heal because it deflates our inflations, right? When we get serious about things, they seem to get worse and worse and bigger and bigger and worse and worse and worse and bigger and bigger and on until we just feel overwhelmed by our problems. That's why some of the jokes that are out, some of the worst jokes emerge right after a catastrophe. Right?
Military humor, I was thinking about.
Well, military humor, right after a catastrophe, there's these jokes. That is a way of taking this terrible thing and being able to cope with it. Make it a little more manageable. Make it a little lighter, lighthearted, I should say. Lighthearted, it lifts our hearts. So you've got to be able to laugh and have humor in order to heal, in order to survive, in order to handle the major burdens that all of us are dealing with in life. It's a healing technique. So how do I maintain it? I thrive on it. I have to have a sense of humor if I'm going to live in this world, right? You've got to be able to make fun of yourself. You guys hear me do that all the time, each Sunday, because I make mistakes every Sunday. Most of you don't notice anymore because we just laugh them off. Right? Okay, maybe one more. No? Going. Once. Go. Okay. Gone. Okay. Oh, we did have one. Lynn. Oh.
Can you speak of one person briefly that you admire and tell us why?
One person I admire. Oh my gosh, there's so many people I admire. I have to say, I recently read Candace Bergen's first memoir, Knockwood. Candace Bergen is the daughter of Edgar Bergen, the great ventriloquist who gave the world Charlie McCarthy. And it was up to her age of about 35, and I've since gotten her second memoir, which is called A Fine Affair. And of course, loved her in Murphy Brown. She was the one you probably remember that I think it was George Bush that criticized her for having a child out of wedlock, or really. But Candace Bergen, what I just so loved about her story. All of us, I see all of us as little raindrops of flesh that fall out of the clouds of life and get plopped and planted where we're plopped and planted. right? Some of us are in really bad situations, and some of us are in fantastic situations. So it appears from those of us in rotten situations. But we all struggle with the same stuff. And here Candace Bergen is, in a neighborhood where, the people coming over to dinner were the Ronald Reagans and the Jimmy Stewarts and the Walt Disneys, and, those are the people she grew up with. And, she had a father that loved her, and a mother that loved her, but very stoic, there's no emotional expression, no love expressed. And in the meantime, she's just, and I have to, be shallow here too. My God, I can't think of anyone more beautiful than Candace Bergen. She's just was amazing, amazing beauty. And so, in that world, when she was growing up, that was a burden. I'm sorry, but it was, especially in a very patriarchal, misogynistic time, right? So she had to deal with that. She had to deal with being, in a Disneyland-like environment, one of the most famous families in the world, and she was trying to figure out who she was. And I read her biography, and I said, that's my biography, and that's your biography, right? We all wake up in this strange reality, and we try to make sense of it as we get older. And throughout it all, there's these forces trying to keep us from the one thing we're supposed to do in this life, and that is become who we really are. And she had a lot of stuff keeping her from recognizing her greatness, her goodness, her kindness, her full potential. And she did it. She did it. So I love Candace Bergen. So thank you. That's a good one to go out on for our first service. So.
Well, today we're going to sing a Burt Bacharach song. One of my favorite singers that I learned about when I was in college, Dionne Warwick, sang this one with some musical friends like Stevie Wonder and I think Gladys Knight, and there was somebody else. Anyway, if you will stand and sing That's What Friends Are For with me, it's in your order of service. You will have the words there. Okay, 2, 3.
Chance to say that I do believe our love
I can hear the buoyant, cheering call of life in a waterfall. The inspiration of it comes into my own body from out of a whispering tree, from a bush glowing with bloom, from a flower, from the song of a bird, from the rain itself. I find great peace and contentment in my faith that this God is everywhere, and that we may meet him face to face 50 times a day if we throw off the hard shell of our egoism and realize that all nature is God, and that we, as men and women and children, are part of that all-embracing nature. James Oliver Curwood. Amen, blessed be, salam alaikum, and shalom.